Hi, I am Suzanne Oliver, a board-certified music therapist and a Neurologic Music Therapy Fellow. I practice in Phoenix, Arizona. I am the founder and executive director of Neurologic Music Therapy Services of Arizona, which is a neurologic music therapy clinic in Central Phoenix. We serve about 150 to 200 families a week in our clinical services, and we also have a school for persons with autism. My journey began 37 years ago, and I've been asked to share with you a bit about my journey and about my passion in regards to best practice and evidence-based practice. So 37 years ago, I began the organization as Music Therapy Services of Arizona. I was a graduate at Arizona State University here in Tempe, Arizona, and saw that there was a need to get services out into the community. There were very few jobs here, and as an Arizona native with plenty of family and friends here, I decided to stay in Arizona and to begin an organization that would educate the public but also give music therapists jobs for the work that they went to school to do. So that's how I began, as Music Therapy Services of Arizona as a sole proprietor. Then when we opened up our first clinic, which was a neurologic music therapy clinic in 2001, we became an LLC. And then in 2007, to further our vision, and when we moved into our larger clinic and began our school program, we became 501c3, a nonprofit organization, Neurologic Music Therapy Services of Arizona. So every step of the way, I have had to consider as a practitioner, but also as an employer of music therapists, what would be best practice, how we could best get services to people in the community in their deepest times of need. And so when I discovered neurologic music therapy in 1999, we received a brochure for the very first public training in Colorado for NMT, and 5 of us went to the training. We came back very excited, and I came back as an employer super excited because I had seen my staff struggle at times to explain the work that they were doing, and I saw them also struggle in understanding the work they were doing and feeling confident about it. Once I became an NMT, I never looked back. I am excited every day about the work I'm doing. I question my work because I want to do the best work. I always want to be practicing best practice, looking at the best evidence, applying the best techniques to drive changes in the brain, and I do that every day. But I am never bored. I am excited, I am inquisitive, I am confounded at times, but never ever have I thought, wow, I wish I had done something else, or maybe I'll go get a degree in something else. This is what my passion is, and NMT has driven that passion. I was worked for CBMT, the Certification Board for Music Therapists, for 10.5 years. I was on the board of directors for 5 years. 3 of those years I was the chair of the board of directors, and then I was also the very first regulatory affairs advisor for the certification board. And I worked with people all over the country trying to get services, trying to look at regulations to help people access services, and I also saw the development of music therapy through the exam committee for which I was board liaison, and also on a couple of the practice analysis. And I saw that the clinical work is what was driving change. And I realize with neurologic music therapy that that evidence-based practice model is what is driving change. So I want to share that with you today and maybe spark your interest in looking a little bit more into it. Neurologic music therapy, when I talk to people, there are basically 3 misconceptions that people have about music therapy. The first is that neurologic music therapy is just another approach to music therapy. Neurologic music therapy is not an approach to music therapy. It is its own evidence-based model, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. The second misconception is that it's only applicable to rehabilitation. That is also not true. It is a model that treats the whole gambit of the person. And we'll talk again more about that. The original research was done with Parkinson's and stroke, but that is not the body of the model nor what it's based on, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. So we've got it's not just another approach to music therapy. It's not strictly for rehabilitation. And the third misconception is that it is an advanced practice. That is not true as well. In the evidence-based treatment model, in the trainings that the Academy provides, we often have students that take the training before they've even graduated from college, and then they are able to, as soon as they become board-certified music therapists, they're able to apply and practice within the model. So those are three misconceptions, and you can share those with your friends if you hear that information come up. So let's talk about evidence-based practice. There's so much mention about evidence-based practice, and when we talk about NMT being evidence-based, oftentimes people will say, well, I don't need that. I'm an evidence-based practitioner. But what I have found is it's important to help people understand the difference between an evidence-based practitioner and an evidence-based treatment model, which is what NMT is. So you can have Johnny in Southern California and Mary in Northern Maine who both read the same research article. And they can take information from that article and they can apply it in their treatment. And they can make changes in their treatment. But you could have Johnny and Mary practicing for 20 years and never communicating. They could be doing different things through the application and their understanding of that article, but they could never communicate and never drive changes in the research. Maybe they could come together at a conference and present on their techniques together, but still not drive change. Neurologic music therapy as an evidence-based treatment model has all the pieces of a model to drive change and practice. So with evidence-based practice, there are three important elements. One is the practitioner and their expertise and information. The second is the client and their values and their needs. And the third is the best evidence that is available, the best research available. So in NMT, we have those three things working together, and specifically we're able to drive the change in the research. Neurologic music therapy, when I began, had 17 interventions. Through the practice over the last 20 years, now there are 20 interventions, and some of the other interventions have changed. How did that occur? Was it just someone who was doing research and they were putting out articles and people were reading and making the changes? No, through the model, what happens is that the clinicians drive the change in the research and the change in the techniques. So I'll explain a bit to you about that. Neurologic music therapy is based on the neuroscience of music perception, music cognition, and music performance. From our understanding of the research, there are three training areas that have been developed: sensory motor training, speech and language training, and cognition training. Then within those areas, there are interventions that have been studied to make changes in the brain, to drive changes in the brain based on the neuroscience pieces that we understand from the research. And so we look at healthy brains, and then we look at what are the parallel connections in terms of helping drive change. So there's a model for that. And best practice model within NMT is to use the transformational design model, which is a model to think through how you're going to treat. It helps me as a clinician know that I'm not just walking into a session with some great idea or some great song or activity that I like to try out on someone and see how it goes. I actually am entering to my sessions looking at first the diagnostics of the individual I'm treating. Then I'm looking at what are the functional goals that I'm treating. And from understanding those two things, I can then go into, well, which training area does that fall under, and which intervention do I know changes the brain in that way? Then I can take that intervention and embed it in a music experience and work to change the brain. That process allows me to identify functional goals, and then it releases my creativity in terms of coming up with the music experiences, because I know what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And I understand the research that when I apply this specific element in the structure of my music exercise, that I'm going to have change. And if I don't have change, then I can use the TDM to go back and understand, well, I must have missed something. Did I miss a diagnostic piece? Or did I miss using the correct element of music to drive the change in the brain? So it really does free you up as a therapist, and it just allows you to be there for your clients in a very, very real way. Sometimes people think, well, neurologic music therapy, a system like that, sounds like it would be very dehumanizing. And actually, it really is the most human thing you can do, is to understand the tool in which you are using. We know from the research that music drives change in the brain. It's not just an adjunct approach. It's not a supportive approach, but every time we use music, changes are occurring in the brain. So I, as a practitioner, want to make sure I understand those changes and that then I use them to help my clients in their deepest time of need. And that really is the most human approach that you can have. We all know that if we're struggling, that we have difficulty thinking, we have difficulty processing our emotions, and so therefore to use the elements to organize, to optimize, to create pathways where there are none, we can allow people to be more of who they are. The other exciting thing about NMT, there's so many exciting things and I don't have that much time to talk with you, but is that you can replicate results. Before I became an NMT, I would do something one week and then I'd come back the next week all excited to do the same thing and apply it, but I wouldn't have the same results. And I never really understood why. But now as an NMT, I can see that I didn't fully understand the elements that I was using, whether it was tempo, whether it was force function, whether it was a temporal template that I had built, how I had planned out my exercise and utilized the music, not to support something happening, but to drive something happening. So I can now look back and go, oh, I get it. That's why I didn't get that result. Or wow, that is why I got that result. And I can go session after session after session and have results. So it really becomes exciting. It feeds me as a therapist to really be the best there for the people that I serve. Going back to talking about evidence-based, the evidence-based treatment model, I mentioned about the clinicians driving the change. The cog in the wheel for that is the fellowship training. So I'll explain a little bit about the Institute and the Academy. Initially, when someone's interested in getting trained in NMT, they go to a 4-day intensive training. And it is intense. It's a lot of information. It's a lot of practice. It's a lot of neurology and looking at research and looking at those elements that drive change and practicing that with your colleagues. Well, once you go to the training, we all know that you can get information. I could sit through a 4-day training and never really apply it in a way that would be functional in my treatment. So the fellowship requires me to come back within 3 years and show 3 treatment videos in at least 2 of the training areas. And by doing that, I'm surrounded by my colleagues. I am there with the faculty that are running the fellowship, and I'm getting feedback and critique about my work. I'm able to ask questions about my work. So I encourage people not to go to the fellowship feeling like you're just going in to defend your work, or you're going in to show something like something, a finished product, but rather it's an opportunity to get feedback. And not only for the therapist to get the feedback, but then also for the clinicians to be able to give the researchers information. The model has changed in terms of interventions over the years due to people coming back in their fellowships and saying, hey, I was using this in this particular area. What do you think about this, and what does the research show? And so we've actually been able to change some of the interventions through the work of the clinicians, and we've been able to add interventions. So that's really exciting. That's that difference from when we're coming together every 5 years after your first 3 years. You come back for your fellowship. I've done 4 fellowships so far, and every single time my work deepens. And I also feel like I bring information to my colleagues that are there, and I bring information and questions for research to the people that are there. So that is the piece of really what I call the cog in the wheel for the evidence-based model. It's a continuous process, and my favorite quote is, evidence-based practice is a state of inquiry, a constant questioning of what am I doing and why am I doing it, and is there a better way? And as a clinician that's practiced for 37 years and continues to practice, we joke around here, I'll probably be 80 and still walking down the hall, that questioning of myself and looking for a better way is what allows me to treat people in the best way possible in their deepest times of need. So it's extremely exciting. Some other things that happen with that process are that insurance, we've had good insurance coverage. And so I'm going to stop for a minute because I just realized I wanted to step back for a moment and mention one more thing about this evidence-based model. Music therapists are not the only ones that practice within NMT as an evidence-based model. We have physical therapists, occupational therapists, speech therapists, neurologists, educators, doctors coming together, taking the training and applying the training in their field. So we're getting, again, it's a model in and of itself that goes beyond music therapy. So I think that's an important thing, and something that I think a lot of people don't always know about. I'd love to talk with you about the therapeutic mechanisms, but that's really not my purpose here today. My purpose today is just to tell you that as a employer, as a therapist, as a human person, as someone who has people with disabilities in my family, that I am excited to be a neurologic music therapist. I am surrounded by colleagues that are inquisitive and excited, whether they're brand new people, walking out their first day into treatment and applying NMT, or whether they've practiced for 40 years and are very skilled and focused. It's an exciting thing. And the model itself allows me and allows all of my colleagues to treat people not just in one specific area. I know before I became an NMT, there was really this focus on population. It's like, well, these people work here and these people work with psych and they work with stroke, and my specialty area is autism. And so I use NMT in my work with autism every day. And it's exciting. But I also know that when someone walks through our door with a traumatic brain injury or a stroke or Parkinson's and no one else can see them, I know that I can go out and see them and treat them by walking through the TDM and walking through the interventions and being able to provide the best practice available. So that's an exciting thing. It allows me to expand on the things that I'm doing. In fact, I've just recently been doing that. I had the opportunity to stretch myself out into other areas, and I'm doing that, and I am confident in doing that. And I have staff, my staff, I remember the first time we had a Parkinson's patient come in, and I had a staff person who had some openings, and she had worked primarily with developmental disabilities, and she said, I don't have any experience. And my response was, but you're an NMT, and you know how to approach it, and you know where to get the information, and you can do it. And then she just blossomed in that area. So that's very exciting as a therapist, just to keep growing and be able to do more and more, whether you're in a community by yourself or you're in a practice here where you have several therapists around you working together. I was going to mention insurance, and I think I will do that a little bit because we often get that question, well, does insurance doesn't really cover music therapy? And again, when we receive a denial from an insurance company and they say we don't cover music therapy, we come back and we say, well, actually, we're not providing music therapy, we're providing neurologic music therapy. And we have had insurance companies relook at the information and turn around previous denials based on the evidence-based model and the research that we could provide through the coding manual that we have available. So there are a lot of just really exciting things as a therapist that I am able to do as a neurologic music therapist. I'd love to talk to you a lot about it. I don't have too much time to do that, but I will say, if you are interested in learning more, you can go to nmtacademy.co and check out the Neurologic Music Therapy Academy's website. We have all sorts of information there. There's a tab where you can click on what's new in research, and you can find that research that we were talking about, that neuroscience, perception, cognition, production research that really drives the work that neurologic music therapists are doing. You can also check out our website, nmtsa.org. If you're ever in Phoenix, or if you live here in Phoenix, feel free to reach out to us, and you can come to the clinic. We really look at ourselves as a teaching clinic. We have 2 internships available, so if you're interested in an internship, we do university-affiliated internships and take 2 interns a year. But we also have a lot of observers that come through. We have high school students that come through. So we'd love to see you at the clinic and to show you in action the work that we do. And I'm just trying to think here. Hopefully I've whet your appetite a little bit for the work. You can check out the website. There, you can also check out the NMT the NMT Academy handbook, and reach out to me, ask questions. I would love to actually share more information with you, but what I want to say to you is that you all are just about to launch into your journey and through your journey as a professional. I hope that you check out NMT because I hope that you're in our profession for a long, long time. And I can tell you again, practicing 37 years, I am excited every day. I am driven every day. I am curious every day. And I'm creative every day in the work that I do. I can do all sorts of things because I am thinking about the specific elements and I am building my music experience so that I can have maximum change and impact on the individual's brain, which can impact them with their body, with their emotions, with their psychosocial abilities, with their cognition. It's super cool. So have an awesome day, and thank you for taking the time to listen to this.